Hi, I'm Keith Pavlansky. I'm the pastor of Faith Fellowship Church here in Yadkinville, North Carolina. I'm a new pastor, and I'm going to get back to that in just a minute because of the topic that I wanted to talk about. I want to take a moment to share some of the benefits that our church has been able to realize since joining with NRP about 5 years ago. First and foremost, I'd like to say that we gained a bunch of new friends, very close friends. Prior to joining them, we had participated in a number of ministerial groups through the years, trying to find one that would help us help our church to grow, help us manage our resources, help us impact our community. And in every instance, we found we met a lot of nice people, but we never did quite find one that we could form a relationship that really made the kind of impact we were looking for until we found the good folks at the Network of Related Pastors. Interestingly, when we first went to join them, they started talking about covenant and relationship in a way that a lot of these other groups hadn't prior to that, and it made an impact on us. It wasn't just a matter of signing a piece of paper, joining up with a specific group, but you were actually covenanting with somebody. They spent time before they would sign us up. We had been to we were fortunate enough to attend one of their functions, and we were impressed. We were impressed with the humility of the leadership. We were impressed with the encouragement that they gave. We were impressed with the dynamic teachers that they had involved, and we just wanted to sign up. We're like, show us the papers. We'd like to get signed up. We'd like to become a part of this. And they said, that's not how it works here. Everything we do is based off of relationship. We need to get to know you, to understand you, to see how we can help you. And so they spent time. We ate together. We laughed together. We had fellowship, and it was wonderful. And they got to know us. And fortunately, the warts that we had and the imperfections were not enough for them to pummel us out of the group. They decided to let us join, and it was positive for us. It's been very positive. What I would like to do at this point is just share primarily some of the details of how they were able to help us through what has been the biggest change in our church in recent history, and that was the transition that we went through. My father had been the pastor of this church for many, many years, and he had also been the president of our plastics company that myself, my brothers, have been running for a number of years. It's been very successful in the last few years, and we've been working to a point to try to get him away from the business. We spend 50, 60 hours a week very often keeping that thing running. And so we don't lack for things to do during the day because the church requires that same amount of time usually. And as a family church, we've all pitched in, but we were looking forward to the day to get Dad retired from the business, and he was looking forward to spending more time at the church doing the ministry work here. And so we had explained some of these things to the leadership at NRP, and here was where they began to inject themselves and say, guys, let's step back and look. We really do believe that you're going through a transition at this point, and maybe you need to be looking even more towards the future. And what they had suggested was that we look for that next pastor, in essence, and make that change all in one. Well, this was a very it was uncharted waters for us. We were used to having Dad around. We were used to having him in the business. We thought just moving him out of there was going to be a change. Moving him just in the pastor's role seemed to make sense to everybody. But again, after a lot of prayer, it became really obvious that the right direction forward for our church was to breathe some fresh air into it, some new life into it in quite a different way, and that was changing the pastor's role. And so we are getting him retired from work, but now he's going to be retired as a full-time pastor, at least here as well. He's not going anywhere, thankfully. But our good friends at NRP, here's where having that covenant made such a difference to us, or made such an important difference to us. Because they knew us, because they had spent time with us, we could trust that the feedback they were giving us and the advice they were giving us was going to be positive for us and for our church. And it really has been. It's been about 3 months now, but those folks came in 6 months prior to the transition. They recommended some things that we start doing. They talked about what would make sense for us to make changes here, and through the service itself, the setting in service, they were there the entire time. They were holding our hand. They were making sure that everything was going off without a hitch. These are people who have been through these kinds of things before. So it was nice to have their experience working on our behalf, and again, knowing that these were people who had our best interest in mind, and they weren't out to harm us. They were only looking for what God wanted to have done here at our church, in our family, in our community, and it has worked out wonderfully. And ever since then, it's nice, again, as a new pastor, to have input. Monthly, I get phone calls from the leadership saying, how are things going? And we have interaction back and forth, and that has been really helpful to me, extremely helpful to me. So we think nothing but good about this entire organization. In addition to the transition and them getting us through it, I've got to point out, we have completely enjoyed the other functions that they have, the band of brothers. Some of my wife, she enjoys the women's conferences that go on yearly. These are important things, and they're helpful, and they're encouraging. We've made friends all over the country now, pastors and other folks. Those have been really solid. But I also wanted to point out the pastors' intensives. A couple times a year, they set aside a time to gather pastors in different areas, and they'll teach on a topic. The one that impacted us about 1.5 years ago was on a pastor's intensive on setting the vision for the church. And they do a dynamic job. I have attended things like this in our business, and the costs are incredible when we're trying to train managers, when we're trying to train our employees for various things. We'll send them off to things very much like this, and it costs thousands and thousands of dollars. These folks are doing it. They're just saying, come here, we'll provide the information, we'll give you the input. The one that we went to was on visions, and the specialists that they bring in on this are just incredible people who help you form your vision and explain to you how to impart that vision to the people that you're going to be working with. It was just dynamic, and I can't say enough about every single thing that the NRP puts out as a group. It's one of the best ministerial organizations that I think that I've ever seen.